Family that left me as fast as the bullet entered Donald Trump's ear at 16. They left me on the streets, now 30 years later want to apologize and make up for lost time. So I lost my mom when I was 12 to breast cancer, so that just left me and my dad. It was a tough time, but we got through it together. When I was 14, Dad met and married my stepmom Ashley, who brought with her my stepbrother Mark and stepsister Emily, who were around my age. I got along with Ashley and Emily really well, but Mark, not so much so. He and I were always getting into arguments and fights. I was always told by my dad to give Mark a break because he's been the man of his house for a while, so this is all new, like somehow it wasn't new to me. Anyways, when I was 15, I met a girl at school, Lisa, and we started dating, as much as one can date at 15. However, Mark apparently had a crush on her and was mad that I asked her out. He started a fight over it, in which my dad had to intervene once again, and somehow I again was made to be the bad guy. One day after my 16th birthday, my stepmom was putting away my laundry and started yelling, which was awkward because my girlfriend Lisa was there. We all ran thinking the worst. When we got to my room, my stepmom was holding several pairs of my sister's underwear, yelling at me why they were in my drawer. I had no answer as I'd never seen them before. Of course no one believed me, no matter how much protesting I did. Then Mark piped up saying he always caught me staring at his sister, thought it was creepy, and caught me once saying I wish I could marry her, obviously lying. But that was all it took. Lisa slapped me and called me a perv and told me we were done and walked out. My dad grabbed me by the arm and threw me out of the house, yelling at me that he wasn't gonna put his daughter at risk from a perv, not the word he used, but you get it. I banged on the door to be let in, crying and telling them it was all lies told by Mark. My dad apparently had enough. I heard the locks. He opened the door and shoved me to the ground and told me to get lost. I told him I had nowhere to go and he said that wasn't his problem, then closed the door. I found myself on the streets, with nothing to my name, no place to go. I tried calling my dad's parents, but he had already called them and they told me they want help a perv. My mom's parents passed away before I was born. Well, I lived on the streets for 2 years, doing what I had to in order to survive. No kid should have had to do what I had to do, in order to just live. Just saying. There were some really dark days. Lots of therapy later in life helped me with this. Shortly after I turned 18, I found a job working at a boxing gym, states away from where I began this horrible journey. I worked there for years, learned the sport, never gonna beat Mike Tyson, but was good at the sport, which helped me with my hate and anger. Then one day I met a new girl, May, who's 20, at the cafe down the street from the gym. At this point I was 35. I know, a huge age gap, but we just clicked. I don't believe in fate, or soulmates or any of that stuff like that, but if there is such a thing, we had it. Don't know how else to put it. We dated for 2 years and then got married. Her dad was an electrician and hired me afterwards, I think mostly to know I would be able to support his daughter and know I was doing right by her, but also in case he needed to keep me in check. He never said this, but as a dad, I get it now. Well, 15 years later we are still together with 4 beautiful daughters. I just passed my master's license as an electrician, thanks to my wife for pushing me to get my GED. She has been my rock, my cheerleader, my overall support through this all, and I can't tell her enough how much she changed my life and how much I love her. Anyways, sorry for the tangent. So just this last weekend, I received an email from my stepsister. Not sure how she got my email address, but I know it isn't hard via the internet, not like I've been hiding. Mind you, I'm now pushing 53, so it's been 30 plus years since I've heard from any of them. It was a long email, not gonna give you all of it, but the meat of it is, they now know what really happened. Mark, I guess, was busy drinking with his buddies on Friday and somehow my name was mentioned. Mark, I guess, started bragging how he set me up and took my girl. Yup, Mark and Lisa got together married, all those years ago. They were all laughing, hoping I died on the streets, a bunch of rude and vile stuff. Guess he forgot Lisa was there and she heard it all, so she called my stepsister to let her know, and so Emily spent all weekend trying to find me. Like I said, the email was long. Short of it is, they want to apologize face to face, although it was already said in the email multiple times, and want to make up for lost time. I'm indifferent to the idea, like, I have no ill feelings towards her. She obviously was young and had no real say in the matter, but with lots and lots of therapy, I learned to let go of that hate and anger and to let go of them, as well with all the love I receive from my wife, kids and in-laws. It's all I really need. I'm of the idea of just deleting the email and moving on like nothing happened. My wife thinks I should at least respond back, even if to say something snarky like thanks for finally believing me. Only took over 30 years. Did I mention my wife has a mean/petty streak to her? Lol. She's awesome. Guess not asking for advice, just wanted to share my story. There is a boxing quote that I have up in my house that reminds me every day. To see a man beaten not by a better man, but by himself is a tragedy. Edited, pushing 50 to 53, because apparently, people are getting hung up on my age, because you know if it's not perfect. Guess that's Reddit for ya. Person shrugging. Update. First, I want to thank everyone for their kind words and advice. I wasn't looking for advice, just wanted a place to share my story. To those that gave me credit for overcoming everything, thank you. However, the wife thinks she deserves most of it. Lol. And in all honesty, she does. To those that think this is fake, it's Reddit. I get it. It is what it is. Most things have to be taken with a grain of salt. I shared my story. I can't make you believe me, but that's okay. If my story resonates and helps others know they can survive, then I'm happy with that, and that's all that matters. Okay, for the update, gonna post most of the original email as a lot of you have requested. Kept out some deep personal info, but majority of it is there. Might have to break it up due to character limit. Plus a response with the help of my wife, and also the help of others who made suggestions, which is good because I'm not that great at putting down in words how I feel without coming off looking dumb. She was able to make me sound less dumb. Lol, taking the family to the lake for the weekend to recharge and leave this all behind me. Thanks again to everyone. Final update. Hey everyone, it's been a hot minute since I've stopped in and updated you all. First, want to thank everyone who's still been reaching out and commenting on my post, so just have a final update for you all. I know a lot of you worried about my former family reaching out after I asked them to basically let me live my life in peace. But thankfully all has been quiet. I think my response made it clear they weren't family anymore and decided to accept it. Outside of that, everything has been good, actually more than good. Found out we are having a baby boy. Although this wasn't planned, we are super excited as are the girls. Not gonna lie, I'm a bit nervous. I think my wife can tell. She just keeps telling me I'm a great dad and not to worry. And yeah, after this one, we are done and I'll be going in for the snip. In the words of Sergeant Murtaugh, I'm too old for this SHT. Just wanted to leave you guys with a little dad advice. Work hard, but stay humble. Never forget how hard you worked to get where you are today. Never forget who you are. It is so much greater than what you do. Story 2. My GF did not tell me about her previous situationship with a friend she was planning a 6-week backpacking trip with. My GF and I dated for half of 2022 then broke up. After about 1.5 years apart, we got back together last winter and had been together again for about 3 months. During that year we were apart. She had a relationship with a coworker who she was also living with. She called it a situationship. Also during that year, they backpacked several hundred miles of the PCT together. They both moved to separate cities last fall after the hike, but decided to remain friends and made plans to return to hike another several hundred miles of the PCT this upcoming summer. My GF and I started talking again last fall. About 1 month after they parted ways, while we were talking, she invited me to join them over the summer, and I planned to join for part of it. About 4 weeks, she never mentioned that they had any romantic relationship while telling me about her time living with him plus his family or her time backpacking with him. I thought they were just friends. Pretty soon after officially getting back together a few months ago, we were discussing boundaries and I told her explicitly that I expected her to tell me if she had any romantic history with any friends who are currently still in her life, especially if me and her were going to spend time with said person. She acknowledged how I felt and I appreciated it, but didn't mention anything about them. A month later, we were discussing how the summer hiking trip would go with the 3 of us. They would be hiking without me for the first couple/few weeks. We were discussing the tent situation, and she mentioned wanting to sleep in a separate tent than him during the part of the trip that it was the 2 of them. I was confused and asked why, since it made more sense for them to share a tent, splitting the weight of a 2-person tent, and then me and her could have our own tent when I joined them. She seemed kinda meh on the idea of them sharing, but didn't tell me why. In retrospect, it seems likely she herself wasn't comfortable with the idea of sharing a tent with a former partner without telling me their history. She recently told me about their history, and I am very hurt. Of course everyone has a right to their own past and I don't want or need to know every detail of every guy she's ever been with, but I feel very betrayed that she would hide her history with someone that she was going to spend so much alone time with, and invited me to spend time with them without telling me. To me it feels very relevant to know this information when it comes to former partners who are currently in both of our lives in a big way, spending 100% of every day together for 6 weeks. I directly told her I felt this way, but she ignored me and omitted the information. I'm really hurt by what is happening and feel like it will be hard to trust her moving forward. From her perspective, I can understand that if she was afraid I would break up with her after hearing this, she wouldn't want to tell me, but I don't know why she would be worried about that. I don't think there's anything wrong with being friends with your exes. She is good friends with another ex of hers. She would put him at 1 or 2 in terms of closest friends, told me, and I'm totally fine with it. I'm unsure about how to think about our future and would love to hear some outside opinions. Thanks. Update, I talked to her last night about the situation. She was very apologetic and admitted she made a huge mistake and betrayed my trust, vowing to never do that again. She said the reason she eventually told me was because she couldn't hold the guilt anymore from not telling. Interestingly, when I used the word lied, she argued with it at first, claiming she didn't lie, but then quickly changed her mind when I pushed her on it. I asked why she felt like she needed to not tell me about her history with him. She said it was because she knew I was going to get mad. She didn't bring up anything specific that I did to give a reason to think this, just a general feeling. She pointed out that she felt confused about whether I wanted to know about their history or not, because earlier in the same conversation that I told her I wanted to know which of her friends were exes, months ago, I also cut her off when we're talking about our year apart and she started a sentence with I had a lot of situationships. I got uncomfortable and interrupted her, saying that I didn't need to know that. I regret how I acted in that moment. I didn't yell or get mad, but I was uncomfortable and shut down the conversation about that topic. I should have let her finish her sentence at least, and it probably made her feel that I was overly sensitive about her past. She said because of this, she thought I didn't want to know about the hiking friend from last year. To me it just feels like there's no inconsistency not wanting to hear your partner say I slept with a lot of people in the year we were apart, and wanting to hear them say I slept with the guy who I'm friends with and we're about to hike with for 4 weeks. Also, if she actually thought I didn't want to know their history, why did she feel so guilty not telling me? I would also like to point out that our relationship in 2022 ended when I dumped her unexpectedly, and I treated her very coldly the night we broke up. I had a lot of pent-up feelings about how she was treating me that year. I can totally see how her fear of being dumped suddenly again had kept her from wanting to mention her relationship with this guy. It would make sense that she was afraid of me abandoning her again. At this point in the conversation I was understanding of what she did. She apologized in a way that felt genuine, and I felt like we could work through it. Then I started digging a little deeper to see if I was still missing anything about the situation. I forgot to mention it in my last post, but a few weeks ago she told me that her ex basically bailed on the hike for this summer. It was very likely he wouldn't be able to go. She told me at the time it was because he couldn't afford it. Around the same time, she also complained to me that he wasn't texting her back and she was annoyed because she felt like he didn't want to be friends with her anymore now that they didn't live in the same city, thinking they were only ever friends. I thought that made sense. I would feel sad if my friends didn't talk to me much after moving. Yesterday, when I confronted her about all this, I asked again why he couldn't go on the hike, and she said again it was because he couldn't afford it. I asked her if she believed him, and she said yes. Then I asked her if he was okay with her inviting me on the trail. She revealed that he actually didn't like the idea of me coming, but he was mainly bailing because of money. I asked to read their text message conversation about it, and she agreed. In their text conversation, her ex at first pointed out to her couldn't afford the trip, but then he also brought up that he didn't like the idea of hiking with me. He said he felt jealous, even though he knows her and him were just a temporary thing last year, and he wished I weren't joining them on the trail, because the PCT was their thing. There were a lot of words, but he was using phrases like I feel a pit in my stomach and things along those lines. He also said he felt like a placeholder since their temporary relationship was sandwiched between me and her first dating in 2022 and then getting back together. She told him that she was upset that he couldn't disentangle their past relationship from their current friendship. She agreed with him that hiking the PCT was indeed their thing and said that she wished I wouldn't come because she felt like I wasn't a great partner for the trail. I am faster than them, and she said she thought I might get impatient, or at least that she could hike alone with him for the first half and then alone with me for the second half so that we wouldn't have to meet. The situation was finally made clear from reading their messages. She wanted to keep this guy in her life even though he wasn't over her. He confessed all this to her a month ago, and she kept it a secret from me. She lied to me about the nature of their relationship because she knew I wouldn't be okay with them being friends given that there was still something there. Also, a few months ago, before we were officially dating again but just talking every day, when she initially asked him if I could join their hike this summer, she didn't use my name, she just said my friend. This was another lie by omission, this time to her ex, to prevent him from knowing the truth about the whole situation. Obviously eventually she told him I was the friend, and then later he decided he didn't want to join. During the whole conversation that night, the point I was making was that her omitting their history in order to protect herself hurt my feelings and made me not trust her, and during the conversation last night, she tried again to omit information to protect herself. When she claimed that he only bailed because he didn't have enough money, I wouldn't have even known that he still had romantic feelings about her if I hadn't asked to read her texts, because she omitted that again. I dumped her after that. I respect myself too much to stay in a relationship with someone who is comfortable repeatedly lying to my face in order to get her way, especially about such an important topic so early on in the relationship. To those who gave insightful, nuanced advice, thank you. I learned a lot from this entire situation and know how to handle these topics better in future relationships. To the one person who suggested that I ask to read their texts, I can't thank you enough for helping me dodge this bullet.